happening? It's Smiles Rants time. We have Age 103 finals, and I quite like the changes. So I'm actually gonna bother to rant a bit. First up, big ol' thing of general mechanics, a lot more than we usually see. We've got building changes, buttload of spell changes, even ritual changes, and then not a ton of racial changes. Big change up to avian and fairy and undead. A few other things are pretty normal. We'll see a nerf sort of to TMs and a buff to a few regular attacker races. So uh, sort of take everything in with sort of the idea that TMs are a bit on the back burner, especially magic is at least intended to be taking a bit of a hit. And let's go. First off, we've got a penalty to war score if you war while under 25 provinces. Um, this is for each war, so if you have 3 wars at 22 provinces, you add 3 provinces, you have 3 more wars. Um, your points for the first 3 wars are reduced, or something like that. I don't really care, because I'm not a 22-man kingdom. If you are a 22-man kingdom, I recommend recruiting to 25, because you're not even playing the real game. Um, you know, within reason. Whirlwind land will always be at least 2,500 acres. This will help increase the land a little bit of people that stay really small. They war real small. Um, I don't think it's a big deal. I think it just early age land for the most part. And I think if you're under a lot of provinces, you'll get a lot of land. Like if you're warring with 10 provinces, you're going to gain a lot more land now in War Winds. Extra War Wind Scientist, that's very nice. Everyone likes bonuses to war, encourages war. Everyone likes science, everyone should be happy. Mutual Peace now basically gives you all the effects of a win, sort of. You don't gain the extra scientist. You do get some science books, but you get credits and stuff now, and that's really important because that means you can mutual peace and you're not sort of get out of luck. This is probably the biggest single change of the patch in war. Doesn't seem like a lot. Uh, Attack protection reduced from 30% to 20%. But that means when you're attacking someone, you're chaining, you're doing 80% damage instead of 70% damage. You divide those, that's about 15%. So you're going to be doing 15% more kills and taking 15% more acres every hit in a chain. So it's like everyone's an orc now, which means orcs are like super orcs. So you should keep that in mind. Everyone knows that kill stacking's been very strong. Got bonus gains times 2. You're gonna see people real low, so expect a lot more deep chains. And I'd say we're back to a point where TMs can actually kind of get traded down and overpopped. I think in recent ages we've been sort of stuck where TMs sort of have to mass them if you want to take them out of the war. Otherwise, you hit them to lower their econ, but doesn't really kill them. It's been really hard to take TMs down, like really hard. So I'm pretty happy with this change. I hope it has the intended effect. Learn science book gains removed. Sort of changes learns in the first week and for new provinces. I don't know if I even like that change. It's a little annoying if a new province shows up mid-age or late age, hitting you for all your books, and you can't actually hit them back because they don't have anything. I guess quality of life for starting late, but it's still a bit annoying. Um, I don't know about this or care about this. I'm not entirely sure what the pool changes is. I think the old soft cap was at 1500. So you get pool a lot slower, but it doesn't decay, and the pool goes a lot higher. Plus, you'll be getting some each war, so you could get your pool all the way up to 2,000. You win wars, you got 3,000 pool. I don't know. The whole kingdom has that, so I think the intention of this is to stop really early growth. We'll see if it works. Um, but without, stopping the idea of going for growth at all. So maybe you have to actually win 3 or 4 wars before you dump pool. That would be nice. Construction costs are down, looks like about 30%, and raise costs. I guess maybe not 30% because your starting is a bit different, but the scaling is down about 30%. So I think that's pretty nice. When you start getting over 3,000 acres, it start getting really expensive to rebuild. Like if your whole kingdom needs to swap 40% of your land, like fuck, that's gonna be like the cost of a dragon and a half. And it's like you can't just easily hoard 500 gold per acre on every province and expect not to get robbed and plundered. And it's like, well, the amount of gold you need to rebuild and send dragons is really high, so everyone's stuck war builds for the most part. So no one's ever pumping, and then the people who are bigger than everyone else, they don't have that problem, so they're pumping both at a bigger size and more efficiently. So I think that's a nice change. And it's a bigger buff the larger you are, so it does sort of encourage growth a bit, which is nice overall. I think people should be bigger. I think people should be aiming to have big provinces that are stronger. But, that's just. Port spells take 2 mana from the target. Um, I mean, this is a shit change for, everyone that wants to cast more spells. But it's a nice sort of balance. When you have all your TMs getting all their support spells by clerics and they're not really casting their own selfies and they're really maxing out honor, it's a little bit whorish. Um, so I think it's sort of keeps kingdoms of different skills and goals a bit closer together. Um, stops loading up all your provinces with stuff without it costing them anything. Well, it's basically just a nerf to TMs though. Core isn't going to run out of mana, just the TMs. So that's TM nerf number 2 in these changes already. Activity bonus is down to 12 ticks for the maximum rather than 16. I think that's a huge quality of life bonus. I would have preferred to see that max income come down with this change, maybe to 150%. I think 200% income on the first is still really out of whack when it comes to war. Uh, it's if you're barely paying wages tick to tick, that 200% income on the first is probably worth more than your last 24 ticks of total in. So it sort of swings the balance a bit rough, and it really does favor people who are all getting that tick gold. Kingdom autofill to 24 is amazing. Love it. Perfect. This will also increase the amount of dragon sent. I think on average hurts TMs more than core. So we'll see. These two are amazing changes. Um, autofill to 24 really helps with the recruiting. You're not spending like $100 an age on all these invites trying to get to 25, which I know it is a struggle. I've been there. Everyone's been there, I think. Um, so I think that's just great. Everyone's going to have a lot less money spent. They're going to be able to compete properly without scrounging the bottom of the barrel. I would tell everyone random recruits in game are probably better than random Muga recruits. There's a lot of talent out there just wanting to play the game. They don't want drama. They're on Muga and they're talking and they're like, "Oh, I need a kingdom." Why do they need a kingdom? Probably because their last kingdom kicked them out for being a dick. Um, warning banner. No more intra intel, intra spells. You're not PFing your buddy. You're not hitting anybody anymore. Love that a lot. Buildings. So this is going to be TM nerf number 3. Essentially all offensive based attacker buildings have some sort of a buff. Barracks are decreasing your mercenary cost. I don't think that's a big deal. I don't think if that change was forgotten that anyone would even notice. So, it's technically a buff, but nobody really cares. Guard stations renamed to castles, and they no longer decrease just your land losses, but also decrease honor losses. This is how guard stations used to be like 20 ages ago or whatever. At one point, there was a change that guard stations only affected land, and then so that got rid of the honor thing. Then it was all resources, and then they were sort of back to how they used to be, except without the honor thing. And this was annoying in War Kingdoms because you would intentionally not run guard stations if you're going for honor as a War Kingdom, because it meant that you would, if you built guard stations, you were getting hit at a higher land more often in range, losing more honor. What you actually wanted to do was run no guard stations. You'd get tanked in land and you'd go back up. You'd get a lot of honor, especially for war heroes. This was really important. So it's a nice change. Changes the balance of things a bit. I think this is the biggest change here is hospitals now increase birth rate. These are half as strong as homes used to be for birth rate. Used to be 4% before they got changed to that flat effect. So I think if you can try and find a way to run an extra 5-10% hospitals than you used to, that's really helpful. Um, so I would suggest considering that. Uh, Keep in mind, you're going to be chained harder and easier this age than most ages. So if you have no defense and you have all these hospitals, you're still going to get chained and lose your offense. So, maybe run a bit more defense if you're also running hospitals is a idea sometimes. But yeah, I think hospitals got the biggest buff here. Training grounds, they don't have that merc cost thing anymore. However, they get extra kills. It's not a lot. People aren't maxing TGs anyways, so you're probably looking at, an extra 6 or 8% kills with TGs. It's not a lot, but when you combine that with stacking gangbang protection and other stuff, pretty valuable. You know, Orcs, Onslaught, Avians, Bloodlust, EF, all this sort of stuff will stack quite a bit. Important to keep an eye on. Now, spells. Amnesia changed to all availability. Amnesia, my understanding is that it's just really bad right now. Um, and you will see later that I believe stages are immune, so there's almost no use case for amnesia that I'm aware of. Um, maybe later age you cast a bunch of amnesia on a rogue before a prop run will be nice. It can be okay on core, but I really don't see the value of it the way it is now without that permanent damage. You can just find something else to do with your mana, right? You have individual targets you need to, really go all out on. Maybe that's a good thing, cows or something, but I don't really get it. Exposed thieves changed to unfriendly. I like this. We've gotten into sort of a meta for top war kingdoms where if you're waving someone, you just sort of hit them 9 times and hit all their TMs. And you can't really do much with just unfriendly anymore. Can't meteor showers them. You don't have any bonus damage on ops or anything. Everything's 3% fight back. So your mana and your stealth use is 3%. So and you're doing less damage. It's like, well, okay, great. I can fight back at best by hitting you back 9 times. Then hope that I was set up to do that. So I like that. I mean, I would have just put meteor showers back on unfriendly also, but that's not me. Fanaticism, this is TM nerf number 4. Everyone just got 5% free offense. Fool's Gold, slightly increased difficulty and rune cost. It was a very cheap spell. I don't think it's now going to be too hard to cast on runes. A little bit harder. Oh, so maybe you can sort of keep gold safe on a high watchtower mystic more than before. But I think with mystics having Mage's Fury, and fairies having WPA, that all fairy mystics will be able to cast on all other provinces, including other fairy mystics. So, oh well, I don't think anyone will notice. I think fairy mystics got enough WPA. They've got like 4 stacking WPA bonuses. It won't be a big deal. Gluttony to everyone, fine. Mist increased 50% duration. That's a pretty nice quality of life change. I've had mist a few times on provinces and just almost never seen it do anything. It's like, oh, okay, and you're in war, you've got 10% guilds, you cast mist, it's on for 2 ticks. Unless their whole wave is this tick, it just doesn't seem to do anything. So, now maybe you've got mist on for 6 ticks instead of 4. Pretty helpful, I think. Only Elf has mist anyways, and Elf is really tanky, so it helps them tank up a bit more. I don't think it's going to break the bank anywhere. Pitfalls kills reduced from 20% to 15%, and it's harder to cast. Again, it's on Mystic only, so you're not really struggling to cast this on anyone except other Mystics. I already thought that Pitfall's damage was 25%, down 15%. Makes it a little less mandatory, but then they moved it to Mystic, all Mystics. It used to be on Proposed, just Undead. So I could have seen people just skip the Undead, skip the Pitfalls, but everyone will have Pitfalls because everyone will have Mystics. Quick Feet's reduced down to 10%, so Quick Feet's no longer equal to Tactician. So that'll mostly come into play in future ages. Because right now, I think the only people getting quick feet are halflings, and I don't think halflings going to be attacking much. Uh, Halfling rogues in growth situations make pretty fair attackers. Um, Halflings in general can do a really good job if they're large TMs at sort of pumping themselves up with military. They've got the train cost now this age. And with the pop space, when they send stuff at Dragon, they're getting that much more peasants. They can pump up offense later. So it's a little bit to trim them. I think this change is mostly going to come into effect in future ages when Quick Feet's on an actual attacking race. Revelations increased by 25%, so, a little bit of quality of life for stages. Salvation is increased to 15%. So Salvation and PF now sort of cancel each other out. 15% is pretty significant. It's 50% more than 10%. So I think Salvation's actually going to be sort of useful to spam around. A bit more incentive to have clerics. And we'll see, for the most part, clerics seem a bit underwhelming, so maybe just a little bit buff. Tornadoes, damage increased 20%. Tornadoes, I haven't seen legitimately used in like 30 ages. I remember, like maybe in the early 70s for ages, getting tornadoed a bunch on some rogues. But since then, not really anything. But, damage increased 20%. We don't have any heretics. We don't have as many good damage buffs either. And even when we had really big magic damage buffs, we still weren't seeing tornadoes that much. So I don't know if this will suddenly make tornadoes useful, but cast storms on someone, tornado them, doing like 40% more damage could be okay. Wrathful Smite is now Wrath, and it's not a support spell, it's just on dwarves. So dwarves gonna hit them and it's gonna hurt a little more. Rat. But this is another thing that makes chaining a little bit more powerful because you're hitting people, you're not losing as much offense, you're retaining more offense, so you're hitting them more. So we're seeing a lot of buffs to chaining, and we're seeing a lot of nerfs to TMs. Support spell list. They didn't go through with proposed changes to nerf Shadows and Divine Shield down to 15%, so those are still minus 20%. It's all right. I think the cleric spells are still pretty necessary, but you could consider skipping clerics this age if you want. I think it's still worth having 1 to 4. But with the buffs to other attacking personalities that we'll see, well, maybe you're missing out on a bit of power with your clerics. And if you think TMs are a bit weaker, maybe you think you can avoid that minus damage. And well, for the most part, I think TMs get more support spells, so seeing clerics a bit on the back burner is another sort of nerf to TM, but we covered that with rituals. Barriers unchanged. I'm kind of liking barrier this age. I think orc with barrier doing pretty well. Tacticians with barrier can stack 2 losses together. You're taking a lot less damage. Might be a way to play. Expedient's going to be what you use in End of War Ceasefire, because just draft rate's really nice. You're not going to really use this in any wars. 10% BE is nice. It's going to make it easier to max out armories and stuff, get more runes. Not a huge bonus, but it's something. Um, Haste. Attack time, training time, and construction time. I don't think this is going to be used in war. I'm not even sure people are going to bother to use this in End of War Ceasefire, because I'd rather just train 3 ticks earlier, or more realistically, train 3 ticks later and come out of war with 3 ticks of training left. I don't think it's worth a whole ritual, because you swap, you lose some draft rate anyways. I don't know. I think the goal is maybe just to cut down a bit on the attack speed meta we've seen. We'll see. Which brings us to Havoc. I believe Havoc's unchanged. Onslaught is unchanged. Stalwart is even weaker. I think we were at 8% DME last age, so 3% even less defense. Good enough. Who knows? But the military casualties can be pretty significant. That's on offense and defense, and just doing everything you can to sort of help out on sustain. I think you might have TMs that would be better off running Havoc with lower TPA, lower WPA, and more defense, and that might actually be better for them than the Stalwart. Something to think about. But I think for the most part, we're just looking at a lot of Onslaught this age. So everyone's just going to be beating the shit out of each other with bonus chains. So have a good way to mitigate that would be a good idea. On to races. That was a lot of mechanics and stuff. Already 25 minutes in or so. Just got to the races now. Avians are one of the biggest changes we'll see, and it's because of their whopping, massive, super duper, huge ass 17 offense elite. This is the same offense unmounted as a mounted orc elite, which, when you put it like that, isn't crazy special. Orcs exist as is, and their elites are very affordable. However, then you've also got Bloodlust, which orcs don't have. So you're looking at basically a 19 offense elite here that doesn't need horses, so that's like, 10 to 15% build space on your attackers. And Bloodlust, you're getting bonus kills. And you have a higher defense D-specs, so you can either run less D-specs and more offense, or you can run sort of like I mean, you're only getting as many as elites as you get at 4,000 gold, but you just get all the elites you can, and then fill out with D-specs, you're going to be a really tanky province. Like, if you've got 8 EPA and other people have 10, 11, 12, you might have pretty close to the same offense as them, except you're going to have almost double their defense. They're going to be running, 12 EPA, 60 specs per acre. You're going to be running like 8 EPA and 10 D specs per acre that are also 10% better. So it's really scary. If they get the elites, I think that I prefer Avian in that sort of tankier role. I think Avian plays a really strong Mystic and Rogue hybrid. I think Avian runs really well with a lot of defense. They have the build space to actually fit in things like forts and hospitals and homes and watchtowers, everything you need. They have Town Watch, so if they ever get too bloated and peasants, they're not going to get chained to oblivion either. they're really hard to ambush. 17/8 is best elite in the game, I think, for countering ambushes. Other than, well, they're even better than dwarf because dwarf and elf elites maybe have slightly better ratios, but then their offense is also supplemented on horses, which don't factor into ambushes. Plus, an avian can be splitting their army between elite and O-specs, so it's going to be almost impossible to ambush elites for avian. Um, they've got the 2 credits per elite thing going on here. So out of protection, they're going to be insane. In war, in wars where there's a lot of offense flying around and eco control, avians are going to be crazy strong because they're going to be turning one soldier into one elite, whereas other races are turning one soldier into one O spec or D spec. However, if you're actually using all of your credits in war, which is not impossible these days, but it's harder, um, then it's about equivalent. So there's cases where avian's much stronger with their credits, and there's cases where they're on par with their credits, but they have 11 O specs, 11 D specs, and bloodlust. They're gonna do great. 20% birth rate isn't crazy, but it's enough to help you going. Um, since they don't have stables, they've got that extra build space. They can fit in hospitals, they can fit in homes, they have an innate birth rate. They can be making the soldiers to train the credits. They're just very strong. However, at 4,000 gold, that's 2,500 after max armories. If you have a really strong end of war ceasefire and you max out your income, you can maybe train 3 elites per acre. If you already have 4 elites per acre, plus you've got credits from Warwind, that's another 1.5 elites per acre. You're hitting that 8 EPA range. And if you're over 6 EPA as an avian, you are far out offensing an orc, is my, understanding. I didn't actually do any math myself. I don't do not guys. So avians are going to be powerhouses. If they don't get the elites they need, they can still supplement high D specs and get value there. They still have bloodlust and a strong O spec and lots of build space. I think avians are going to be strong all age. Now, if you're a top kingdom and you run a bunch of avians and you get all these elites, expect people to just dodge you though. So got to deal with that. If you want to bully people, if you want to learn wave, you're going to be sacrificing those too. That's a problem. What else about it? We'll see that there's humans and dwarves are going to be making a shitload of money this age. You can come out of End of War Ceasefire with 0 TPA and 10 million gold and have your avians rob you and train, get another extra 2 or 3 EPA. That's totally doable. Um, that's the sort of stuff someone like a Barco will do. Get really strong high EPA fairies all the time. So, you know, just in case you didn't realize that was pretty easy to do, totally an option. Um, yeah, Avian's going to be good at everything. I don't think there's a single personality they're going to be that sad with. So, yeah, Avian's good to go. No Dark Elf. We basically have an undead that's more like a Dark Elf this age. Dwarf. Where are we at for Dwarf? So, all their military's the same. Their penalties age to age are pretty minor. They have 30% income now. That's crazy. Um, that's a modestly high offense. 13 plus horses is totally reasonable. You can break TMs with that all day long. And with that building efficiency, you can build whatever you need to build, right? You can get the hospitals with the bonus birth rate. You can get lots of TG and stuff. You can build racks and pretend you're an of old. So Dwarf can really tailor their builds and needs to the situation and the enemy. They did lose that traditional Dwarf build cost, raise cost sort of thing. So, you're not getting free builds or anything, but builds are a bit cheaper anyways, and instead you have this 30% income, and that's massive. Like, that is so much money. You go from barely paying wages to having spare money every single tick of every single war. Like, you're going to be throwing dragons down, you're going to have high draft rates, you're going to be loving life. 20 minus 25% construction times, enough to always be getting your builds done in war, even if you have quite a few barracks or something. No access to mercenaries is not something I think most people care about. It does, however, limit, some funny cheese you could do with dwarf warriors. So, darn. But I think dwarf's a monster. I think dwarf's probably the top core, I'd say, for this age with that income bonus. But um, yeah, I think with the sort of mitigation you want or need in to handle chains this age, I think dwarf is best suited to it because dwarf can run hospitals, they can run guard stations, they can be a bit tankier, they can run high speed, they can do whatever they need to. And I think with TMs being a little weaker, dwarf can really focus on being built against enemy cores. I think they'll be great. I love dwarf this age. Just throw dragons at people while kicking their butt. Totally acceptable. Elf. Well, I don't like elf very much. Um, they have less offense than all the other traditional attacking races. They're less offense than dwarf and human. They can, supplement that with D-spec, so they're either going to be very tanky, sort of like the way I described avians as being strong, or you can just have less D-specs, push for more offense, and then in that case, they are on par with offensive dwarves and humans, and maybe even some bad orcs and avians, but I don't think tanky is the name of the game. Um, Tanky does work pretty good against cores that like kill stacking and stuff. Like if you can stop people from multi-tapping you, that is a huge bonus in a core versus core fight. But I find elves have a really hard time with build space. You can't fit all the builds you want in, especially when you need, like if you have a 12D spec, you want to fit in forts and you want to fit in hospitals, and then hard to fit in forts and hospitals and TGs and homes and racks and like it's just a lot of stuff. Um, Clear sight's really nice. Um, Ghost workers, it's some BE. Like these are missed. Like these are all really high quality spells. You'll be happy with them, but I think elf, a couple elves in a kingdom are going to be pretty sad. I think they're just going to end up inevitably throwing all their D specs into a dragon. I think if you run a large focus on an elf core, and you have a whole core that's quite tanky, that you can probably beat a lot of traditional high offense setups with a higher D specs and with forts. You could even run stalwart pretty reasonably. So something to look out for. Military wages is a pretty good economic bonus in war, especially. But I wouldn't consider it nearly as good as plus income, at least at the percentages given. Plus 20% train costs means they actually have the most expensive elite in the game, other than Avian, because he's going to be like, whatever, 1,000 each. And even their D specs are going to be costing 420 instead of 350. Plays it. So I think Elf's in a weird spot. I think you can run some okay Elf TMs. Um, because they do have that 12D spec, of course. So you can run, really tanky elf rogues, and they have clear sight, which will make them a bit more resilient against, say, halfling rogues that you might be worried about. They've got that BE bonus from ghost workers. That's very important for a rogue. They won't get chained as easy with mist, etc. You could do the same thing with mystic. Mystics with clear sight are basically penetrable. However, I think a fairy mystic's just going to be able to fireball an elf mystic. They have to. It is what it is. But, it's fine. You build D specs, you pump a lot of builds and pretend that you're good at the game, and you'll probably do fine. But I think Elf's going to be pretty underpicked and underwhelming. Fairies. Where are we at for fairies? So, fairies got a 5% population nerf. So that's basically one and a half less PPA, or one and a half less PA, WPA, TPA. Like, you have to find the space somewhere. It's not a ton of space, but it is, one of something that you don't have. Um, they also lost ghost workers, so they're not having any beat bonus. So, there's two modest economic nerfs to fairy. It's pretty noticeable. Um, they no longer get these big spell durations, so they're going to be using more mana to accomplish the same thing. So a nerf there, but 20% WPA is 20% WPA, 20% WPA. That's very strong. If you have 5 WPA, that's going to be equivalent to your population bonus nerf. So, if you're a fairy mystic, which I think is going to be almost the only mystic you see, then they are, about as happy as last age, population wise, and they can just go really hard on strength. Um, Fairies have meteor showers now, so they're the only way to get meteor showers is fairy, not through mystics. So fairy mystics are going to be picked anyways because you want all the WPA anyways. So I think fairies have a few ways they can go. I think with all the TM nerfs we've seen, that you want to push for defense harder. And I think these fairies can do that. I think for the most part, you can run like a 3 DPA fairy mystic. You've got uh, WPA bonus from fairy, you've got Mage's Fury, you've got channeling bonuses, you'll have more WPA than other people. So I think you can run a pretty low, compared to most ages, WPA fairy and land all your spells on everyone you need to, except for, other casters, and maybe you have a specialized caster to do that. I think that's a pretty strong way to play. Um, they have no bonus to thieves. You've got to watch out a lot because of how strong cores are this age. So I think it's pretty rough. Being an elite focused fairy in an age that's going to have a lot of offense, and you don't really have anything going for you. You've got a population nerf, but want meteor showers and fool's gold, you have to have some fairy mystics. So good luck. Um, it's sort of required, so it's not like I can tell you not to pick it. All I can say is make sure you have defense, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine, right? You'll be fine. Um, but yeah, it's going to be tough to have a super high TPA and WPA fairy that does everything and is unbreakable. So figure out where you're going to make those concessions. Halfling. Halfling is basically unchanged. Um, they actually have an elite that has offense now, so they're a little bit better at the early age hybrid if you want a hybrid before you go to a pure TM. But it's the same defense, it's the same population, it's the same TPA as last age. So there's effectively no difference for Halfling over last age. I think Halfling was probably considered the best TM already last age. I think almost every top kingdom was focusing on halflings for rogues, and a lot of them were even using halflings for mystics and heretics. I think a lot of that comes down to how easy you can pump a halfling in growth situations and in longer wars. You can throw extra thieves on them, you can throw extra defense, you can throw O-specs onto them. They gain more peasants in a war than something like a fairy or an elf because their meteor showers are killing more D-specs, killing the same amount of defense, but every point of defense a halfling loses 20% more peasants. Sort of not the best way to think about it, but it is correct. And they got that military train cost. So now you're going to be able to pump a halfling TM in war to be unbreakable, or a longer war you can push offense on it. And I think we see a few ways that there's going to be quite a bit of income in wars now with nerf TMs, no easy access to chastity, with things like humans and dwarves potentially adding a lot of gold to the war. So if you have a lot of gold, you have a lot of soldiers, you have some halflings, you can make things happen. So I think halfling's excellent choice for rogue. I think you can do a bit more hybrid things on it than you used to be able to. We've seen quite a few halfling rogues. The attackers all age in growth situations in the last few ages. So that's still on the table. They got that quick feat. It's only 10% bonus attack speed, but it helps a bit. Um, with no meteor showers on the Mystic, you do miss out a bit. If you have fairy mystics cover it, you can still go a halfling mystic, have really, really safe peasants because of WPA. You can do damage with thieves and wizards. Like, it's sort of your only strong attacker, thief, mage super combo that still has defense. So yeah, I think halfling is your strongest TM by far, outside of, showers in your build. So keep an eye on that. Um, human. Where were we? Oh, human. Sorry, I was doing stuff. Human seems pretty strong to me. We saw a few humans last age, like Merciless and I think Swea both ran some humans. Neither were particularly successful, but we did see them, so um, we can sort of compare their last age to next age and see what we can expect. And what we can see is that humans essentially only got buffed. Um, they gained one horse, so they're gaining offense. Offense very important. Now they're equal offense to dwarves. Hey, not bad, right? For O-spec offense. Um, they have a better military than an elf because they still have that 12 defense. They have the option to suicide with their elite, which elf doesn't have. They have more offense now, and they're getting their offense through O-specs. You don't need that much EPA as a human, so you're going to have a lot of extra gold in End of War Ceasefire with Tree of Gold. 15% income that they used to have is better in war, probably, than Tree of Gold. But Tree of Gold can be used in war and out of war to help a bit. It is better than 15% income if you're able to actively use it. They're still the best science race, efficiency, and fountain of knowledge. And O-spec attackers are the best learners by far because they can replenish their offense. They're not sacrificing their war power significantly. Um, they don't have that rune cost problem anymore. Not that 10% rune cost was a big deal. Um, Wages can be annoying in war, especially. However, humans, again, not having the full EPA requirement of other attackers, have naturally lower wages slightly. And things like science efficiency cover that. They're gaining an offense. They're gaining invisibility. Invisibility, 10% TPA, 20% thief loss reduction. Really handy. I mean, it's not game breaking, but it saves you thieves on intel. It, with the science bonus and invis, you can throw 3.5 TPA on your province. Maybe have a bit better crime than other people. Throw in like 5% TDs and do fairly well. Um, Also with less strong, presumably TMs, humans, they can sort of skimp the watchtowers, run more TPA, and sort of have a defensive attacker thief build that can perform really strong against other core. So I'd look out for that. And +1 general is really strong. Like, that was one of the best bonuses of Tactician. Now humans are just getting it for free. When you're in the trenches, especially with what I've explained about more kills and more land taken in the trench, you're going to have people with really low defenses. You're going to be able to use that general in the trench. I think humans are really strong this age. I think they're I don't think I prefer them over dwarf quite. But if I want to learn wave, Merciless 2 dozen times, I'd certainly be picking human to do it. Um, Human, like elf, struggles a bit with build space. They want to build a lot of buildings with their elite. They want to have more war buildings than they can really fit, so they have to figure out a way to do that. Um, how do you do it? I don't know. You can cover some of these weaknesses with rituals and with personality picks, so it's really up to you how you go about that. But I think humans looking really strong. I recommend you try playing it. Tree of Gold's amazing. You have a ton of gold to, help out with dragons, help out your allies if you have a mixed core. The extra general is, it's with an extra general and with fanaticism, suddenly you can increase your offense like 25%. You can throw in some elites. Like you can really stretch the offense on humans. So I think they're pretty strong. I think you should pick them. Orcs. Orcs, I think most people are the happiest with, thinking they're the strongest core. I don't disagree. We see they've lost bloodlust, but gained military casualties. So essentially, orcs are doing the same kills and giving the same kills on attacks and on defense as before. However, they're losing a bit less, so they sort of got like a hidden uh, unit retention buff. Um, they lose WPA and TPA, increase damage is what they lost, or they gained the less TPA, WPA. I think those are about equivalent. I'd say that this is actually a relative buff for the most part. I think you just want to run orcs this age with like one TPA, one WPA, and just not give a fuck. And then you can focus your end of war ceasefire a lot harder on elites and draft and science, and just sort of skip the hard guild pump. Their max offense is ever so slightly lower without bloodlust, but they gained +1 on the elite, so it's pretty equivalent overall. Um, they're still gonna have enough offense to do everything. And with you know lower gangbang protection in war, orcs are doubling down on those bonuses with extra kills, with extra gains, so super strong. Um, I think the strongest core last stage was Orc Tact. Tact lost 5 gens, which is going to hurt that biggest strength of Orc. I think Orc Tact is still the strongest pick next stage, even without that extra general. So something to look at. Um, Orc War Hero is going to be, taking 70% military losses while dealing 115%, and that's a 50% difference over baseline. So that's very strong section 4. So I think Orc has a lot of options. They have no TPA and WPA, and they can't really account for that bonus with science or extra training easily. I think something like a bunch of humans would be able to night strike a bunch of orcs really easily in a lot of wars. So I think there's a bit of a nice rock paper scissors going on, but I think if you just run orcs with a lot of offense and some speed, they're gonna crush pretty much everything. So I think a lot of your picks and goals through the age should be, how do I counter orc? You can counter orc. That's the hard part. You could counter everything else other ways, but you need sort of a setup that can counter orc. Um, so figure out what that is and how that is for you. Their elites are slightly more expensive. They're going to have all the elite. It's 850 elites across pretty much every race, means everyone has all the elite. It's really easy. Free draft is great. If there's less eco control on the server, then they have more peasants to draft with. Uh, yeah, I think it's hard to go wrong with work right now. I think incredibly strong. And there's not much to say about them. They're just little murder bots. And yeah, works. Onslaught, PF. Undead. Oh, it's pretty bad. Um, they don't even plague people. Like spell damage, spell duration, amazing bonuses. But they're just sort of like a shitty dark elf that doesn't have some of the things dark elf usually has. Um, you save 5% land on farms, but you can't plague people anymore. So their biggest offensive bonus is gone. There's no offensive unit retention like they usually have. Um, they have nightmares and chastity, but you're not going to be able to cast nightmares unless you're a mystic. If you're a mystic, you can't cover these penalties at all. Their elite is, I mean, it's the same elite as a dwarf, so it's not like their offense is bad. They have the fine offense. They have the same offense as humans and dwarves, but they're getting chained harder while taking full kills, and those are two things that we're really emphasizing this age as being super relevant. So I'm not sure how to make undead particularly happy. You could throw in some hybrid undead mystics, and you can cast Chastity pretty easily. You could have a lot of undead mystics mixed in with a big human necro core. You nightmare, you use 5 generals to chain really hard, you have 25 people attacking. Something like that can work totally. That's on my list of potential setups. It's a bit mean, but it would be fun to use. But they're really struggling with unit retention and getting chained and shit. Um, the only way I see this working is if you can really control what your enemies are targeting. Like if you have a bunch of suicide orc warriors or something that are guaranteed going to be the people chained first, then their undead are going to make it a little further. You could run undead war hero and make sure they have salvation up. You can look at stalwart. Like there's a lot of casualty reduction available that isn't hospital. But we also saw hospitals see a pretty significant buff. So I wouldn't recommend anyone pick undead unless you have a plan for it. But, you know, maybe I'm just biased. I think them losing ability to plague people is incredibly sad. But here we are. Poor baby. Poor. It'd be fun to see an undead mystic uh, casting tornadoes, though. Much damage. Cleric. A cleric, I mean, they only had 20% casualty reduction before. It's not the 30% we've seen in the past, or even the 35% we've seen in the past. So it's it's not like they lost everything. Um, Salvation got a small buff. Um, but with all the other changes, with it taking mana, oh, cleric's going to be a bit on the back burner for most people. What they did gain is reflect magic. Um, so if you're a cleric that can pump a lot of wizards, Black Magic gets pretty oppressive. If you're a cleric that has any sort of economic or eco bonus, you're going to be able to hang on to those peasants a lot easier with Reflect Magic. So it is a really strong spell. Oh, I can see it being used pretty well on humans, on dwarves, on elves, on orcs. So, you know, there's a lot going on. Um, and 2 mana selfies is really nice, and the casting's basically free, so that's big quality of life. Um, so you know, I mean, I think you'll still run the same amount of clerics as before. It's just that sort of a nerf to TMs more than the clerics. But, um, it's rough. I don't know. It, it, I don't think reflect magic is quite enough to make it all worth it, but we'll see. I might be wrong. I think a few clerics could surprise people at their value in war, but mystics losing 50% guild effectiveness for the first time in a lot of ages. Um, that's significant. That's like 5% land in war that you really want and really need. They're all getting Mage's Fury though, so all Mystics hybrids are going to be really good at casting fireballs and greeds and stuff, but they don't get that meteor showers anymore. Crazy, but you can find ways to use your mana. Um, in End of War Ceasefire, your Wizard Pump's going to be about the same as before, with Mind Focus being available. It's just that in War, you're losing some of that free guild land. Um, I think Mystic's fine. It's took a little bit of a hit on that guild effectiveness, especially I think in War is a problem. But I think you can run hybrid Mystics pretty well. Anything that likes offense, toss a Mystic on there. Anything that likes eco, you can talk a Mystic on there. Anything that has defense, there's a lot you can still do with Mystic. It's just, it lost some of that charm. But, end of the day, you need what, 14% guilds instead of 11% to get max duration casting. Not the end of the world. I don't think we'll see a lot of it, but I think it's about as strong as it used, because in the end, your hybrids weren't casting a ton of meteor showers anyways, so you can still rely on your fairy mystics to cover that stuff. Oh well. Necromancer. Some buffs, not big buffs. Animate Dead, not the best spell in the world for core, because, in the end, your elites are out. You only have so many D-specs. You're only taking so many losses. But, free soldiers is great with Animate Dead. Free units that don't take population, really strong in war, especially good at attrition. Um, Especially good when we know in war we're having more kills. But you need to have dungeons, and they need to stay full, and um, 30% military casualties instead of 25%, basically unknowable. It is a 20% bonus over what it was, but it's pretty small. And it really all comes down to the plague thing. Um, if you're turning double taps into triple taps, you're turning triple taps into quad taps. Plague is amazing. You're turning, if you plague a TM and you just nail them down, amazing. It's not as good as Warrior for chaining. Like, just having that offense all the time does do more. But you've got this sort of weird retention bonus thing going on between these three bonuses. And then, minus 15% military offensive casualties. Super small bonus, but it's there. It's nice. Is it going to win you the war? No, but, a few percent here and there adds up over time. I don't think Necromancer's going to be winning the age. I think because we see buffs on War Hero and on Tactician, that maybe Necromancer doesn't quite hit it there yet. However, I think there's a lot of potential there. I've been meaning to talk to Ari about how his Orc Necros did last age, if he liked him, if he didn't like him, so maybe hit him up in Muga, see. I know that Joel in Swea said that he was pretty underwhelmed with his Necro. I think the trick to Necro is to focus on really high offense. Want to be making multi-taps already, and then make the Plague make those multi-taps even better. Want to be focusing offense so that you're getting more prisoners, stuff like that. So I think you can totally run a Necro core. I think you could even just run a half Necro core and be pretty happy. But it's a bit RNG. It's a bit hit or miss. I don't think I'm planning to run them. I think before they screwed up the undead, an undead mystic plus Necro core was near the top of my ideas for setups. I think it's still totally viable, but maybe not the strong. Orc Necro, Avian Necro, whatever you want. Human Necro, Dwarf Necro. Like, they're all gonna work. Just the Necro doesn't give you any build space. And a lot of core want a personality that sort of helps them out with build space. So figure it out. Figure it out. I'd say keep an eye on Necro. I think if you work it right, it's going to be pretty strong. Um, not much change to Rogue. 25%. Actually, I take it back. That's actually a huge nerf to Rogue. It's super difficult to max out TDs with 50%. The 75% to 100% gap isn't as painful. The 50% to 75% gap's actually really tough on Rogue. So you're gonna see a lot of problems with Greater Arson, with Prop and Assassinate Wizards, but you won't have quite as bad of an issue um, with just Night Striking and stuff like that. But you're gonna struggle a bit more to break through Mystics. You're gonna struggle a bit more um, if you don't have the building efficiency in the land to fit all that in. So we're seeing another big nerf to TMs through this nerf to Rogue. Um, and you know what? I've always already found it pretty annoying to Greater Arson things. I think Rogue's probably on the back burner here. I think the Mystic change wasn't really much of a nerf, but I think this Rogue nerf is pretty significant. So it's gonna be tough out there. Gonna be tough, especially even hybrid rogues are taking a pretty dang hard hit off of this. I've thought a lot of hybrid attacking rogues have been strong for a while with ET changes, especially. So another nerf to them. Sage, nothing's really changed. They're immune to amnesia, but no one's using amnesia. It's fine, but for the most part, I think you're gonna scale better with War Hero than with Sage. Still fine for micros and stuff. Some War Kingdom could try to use Sage. I don't know if it's really gonna be that outstanding. I haven't really been impressed with it. Um, I've tried running Sage twice in the last 5 or so ages myself, just as a solo, and it's fine. It doesn't do a lot for me. But maybe with something like an avian, you can actually boost that income crazy high. With things like human, tree of gold, and dwarf, you can focus on eco and just be spamming dragons and benefit things like that. Maybe shepherd. Um, tactician's kind of weird spot right now. Um, attack time instead of quick feats, very minor buff. They lost the extra prisoners, very minor nerf. But they lost the one general. That's a really significant nerf, especially I think this age with how chaining looks and how I think there's going to be just in general a larger focus on core and deep chains. So I think the loss of this general is actually worse than this combat buff is. Um, so I think attack speed is still king when it comes to core versus core, so it's probably totally viable to be picking, not just viable, but very strong to be picking tactician cores right now. Um, you know, attack times basically gains nerf. This is the gains buff. You'll still be beating people really hard as tacticians, but actually seeing sort of a nerf to a core like this is pretty rough. So yeah. That's Tactician. Losing that General, really hurtful. And then crazy, crazy, crazy bonus to War Hero. I mean, you don't get the +1 elite offense. That's for most people like a 7% offense nerf. But you're gaining -30% military casualty, which is like that used to be the whole cleric bonus, and you're getting that on top of what's the whole War Hero bonus. Um, So if you say 7% offense is worth half of Warrior, War Hero lost half of a personality buff and gained a full personality buff. So they're like they gained a half personality buff. I think War Hero is by far the strongest core pick for anyone that's warring this age. I think the one sort of contraindication you have here, not the right word, is that with the hospital buff, you want to be running more hospitals, and then the minus casualties don't stack super strong. So you might not be as well off as a war hero with TGs versus, say, a warrior with hospitals. Not exactly how things work, but I think that's sort of maybe holding back War Hero a tiny, tiny bit. But I think War Hero's strongest core pick. Um, your only issue is if speed is strong, and speed's strong, you're not gaining any speed. You're not getting any benefits from War Hero for a long time. War Hero doesn't even start with elites right now, so you don't get that early war win to start that honor steamroll. But Hero's Inspiration is an amazing spell. It helps your pump, it helps you in war a lot. Minus military casualties, I think, is going to matter a lot. If you can just fit like one extra D-spec per acre on your core with some pretty good troop mitigation, you're gonna stop people from quadding you while you quad them back. Um, but with worse TMs and so much core versus core fighting with deep chains, especially deep chains, the honor thing is gonna go up. Every time you get deep chained as a war hero, you gain half of an honor rank permanently, basically. So the more you get chained and the more hitting you do in chain recovery, the more honor you get, and it's going to be crazy. Um, War heroes can lose wars and not really mind. Like you can just war and war and war and war. As long as it's core versus core in the trenches, you're gaining honor fast. Maybe your TMs lose eventually, but your core is just getting stronger and stronger. I think War Hero is crazy good right now. So yeah, keep that in mind for sure. um, and then Warrior. Um, Warrior gained mercenary cost, and otherwise, Warrior gained mercenary cost and 5% defense. What it gained, which is a lot less than what War Hero gained. So, and I already think I preferred War Hero last age to Warrior, but offense is offense is offense. You can never say that offense is bad. So, offense is good. Um, you know, I mean, they do gain 5% more offense, but so did everyone else. Everyone else got fanaticism. So their relative offense gain is less than maybe it looks. So it's kind of weird, but there is just more offense overall. Um, Using mercenaries on the cheap, especially if you're building racks, if you remember to use the bonus, it's really good. It helps you crush TMs. It's fine. It doesn't really wow me. I really think I prefer War Hero over Warrior overall, but offense is offense. So I don't think anyone will be sad if they pick Warrior. I think Warrior is good on every attacking race. I think Avian Warrior with, 6 EPA and 12 D specs per acre would be just laughing and then still be able to break people while having, 200 DP. I think Orc Warriors are going to be laughing because they're quadding everyone with no trouble. I think human warriors are going to be using 5 generals, and I think dwarf warriors are going to be, maxing out guard stations while still breaking TMs, not being able to be chained so hard. So I think, yeah, warrior's super happy. Though, I mean, dwarf warrior can't use mercenaries. Careful with that one. Overall, I love the changes. I think it's going to be a really nice change up. I think someone is going to figure out how to make a TM wall still work and probably win the age anyways. But for the most part, I'd suggest having a big core and hitting people a lot. Build barracks and hit people, and you'll do just great. So, yeah, that's the rant. Thanks for uh, thanks for watching. Haven't done one of these in a while, but I secretly wrote these changes and sent them to Hex to send to David C, who's my alter. So I thought it would be really important for me to do this. Cheers.